The night began with rain, the kind that doesn't just fall, but reminds you of everything you've been running from. I stood outside her door, soaked, heart pounding harder than the storm behind me. When she opened it, she looked like both a memory and a miracle. "You can stay," she said softly, her voice trembling like the candlelight between us, "but only tonight." I smiled, broken and breathless. "Maybe," I whispered, "that's all I need. But if you think that night ended there, you're wrong. Because sometimes, one night can change everything, especially when love has been waiting for another chance." I hadn't planned on seeing Emily again. It had been 2 years since I left her city, 2 years since I walked away from the life we built, chasing a dream that ended up costing me more than I could afford. My band had fallen apart, gigs had dried up, and I was left with nothing but a worn guitar and too many regrets. The rain had driven me to her street by accident or fate. My old truck broke down just a few blocks away, smoke hissing from the hood. I sat there for a long time, watching the water streak down the windshield, before I saw the familiar glow of her porch light. It was always on. I told myself I'd just ask to make a quick call, find a mechanic, and go. But when she opened the door, barefoot, wearing that same oversized sweater I once bought her in the winter of our first Christmas together, every reason I had for leaving vanished. Her eyes widened. For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Then she crossed her arms, as if shielding herself. "Liam," she whispered, "Hey, Em." My voice cracked, betraying the calm I was trying to fake. "Truck broke down. I just needed a place to dry off." The silence between us was thick. It wasn't anger, it was the weight of everything unsaid. Finally, she stepped aside, wordlessly letting me in. The house smelled the same: lavender, cinnamon, the faint scent of paint from the walls we'd once argued about coloring. Everything was the same, except the pictures. "Ours were gone, you can stay," she said quietly after a long pause, "but only tonight." I nodded. "Maybe that's all I need." She gave a small, bitter smile. "You said that before." We didn't talk for a while. She made tea. I sat near the fireplace, letting the warmth touch my cold hands. The flicker of the flames caught the faint scar on her wrist, the one from when we moved her father's old mirror and she refused to let me help. I remembered how she laughed when I called her stubborn. Now that laugh was gone. When she finally sat down across from me, her voice was softer, but still carried that quiet strength I loved. "So, what happened to the dream?" I let out a breath. "It burned out. Like everything else I thought I could fix." She looked down at her tea, eyes glistening. "You could have called." "I wanted to," I said. But every time I picked up the phone, I didn't know what to say that wouldn't sound like an apology. "Maybe that's all I wanted to hear," she whispered. Something in me cracked then. The rain outside hit harder, like the world was trying to drown out the silence we'd both lived in. I wanted to tell her everything: the nights I couldn't sleep without her voice, the songs I wrote but never played. Instead, I just reached for the guitar that leaned against the wall. She looked surprised. "You still play?" "Not much," I said. "But there's something I never got to finish." I started strumming softly, the same melody I wrote the night before I left. Her eyes widened in recognition. I sang quietly, hesitantly, every word like a confession. It wasn't perfect. My voice cracked, my fingers stumbled, but it was real. By the time I stopped, her tears were already falling. "You always knew how to ruin my resolve," she said with a trembling laugh. "One song and I remember everything." I smiled, just barely. Maybe remembering is what we needed. We talked for hours after that, about what went wrong, what we both lost, what we both learned. Turns out, she'd started her own design studio. She'd made it. I was proud of her, more than I could ever say. When midnight came, she glanced at the clock, then at me. "It's late," she said softly. "You should get some rest." I nodded and headed for the couch. But as I settled under the old blanket, she stood there for a moment longer, her expression unreadable. Then she whispered, "Liam, if you leave tomorrow, do it quietly. I don't think I can watch you go again." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I watched the rain fade to dawn, the light creeping through the curtains, painting gold across her hallway. I wanted to stay. I wanted to tell her that maybe this time, I wouldn't run. But I'd already broken that promise once. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is let them forget. When she woke up, the couch was empty. The only thing left was my old guitar, with a folded note tucked under the strings. You said only tonight, and I kept my word. But I think you should know, sometimes one night is enough to remember what forever used to feel like. Don't wait for me. Just live. Hours later, when she sat on that couch holding the letter, she smiled through her tears. Because for the first time, she understood some goodbyes aren't endings. They're beginnings disguised as farewells, and somewhere down a long road, beneath a clearing sky, I walked with nothing left but the peace of knowing that for one night, I was home again.